Hello and welcome to Sexually Speaking with myself, Keisha Clark, and Rhonda Burns. And Rhonda Burns is playing a little bit today, so she may be tuning in. She may be like contributing her 2 cents worth at a time. And we also have the amazing fortune to have a guest this week who is a dear friend of both of ours and also a radio show host on A2Zen as we are. He's also a magnificent facilitator extraordinaire who loves to assist people in bringing their awesomeness to the world. His name is Alun Jones. Good morning, Alun.
Good morning, Keisha. Thank you, and Rhonda. Thank you for having me. It's awesome to be here with you both.
Yay! Thank you for coming to play, and thank you for coming to play. You know, for those of you who've not met Alun, we'll give him a moment to talk a little bit about his awesomeness. Alun is one of the folks that we really appreciate his willingness to talk about things that are not really comfortable. And if it's your first time to be joining us on Sexually Speaking, this is all about having conversations that ordinarily would be possibly uncomfortable for a lot of people. We're talking about all things sex and the sex of everything. And we love having unconventional conversations to unfuck your life. So we find for ourselves that seems to be where the juice is, and that's also a place where a lot of change is possible when we're willing to go there, if we're willing to go there. And Alun is one of those folks who loves to have those conversations as well, and that's one of the many things I adore and appreciate about him. So Alun, will you share a little bit about yourself with our visitors, with our listeners?
Yeah. My vulnerability comes up here because I always kind of think, oh, what do you say in these kind of things? So in terms of who I am and who I be and what I do, yes, absolutely. Empowering awesomeness is something that I really love to do with people in no matter who they are, where they are, and what area of their life. So empowering you to have awesomeness with your sex and sexualness, yeah, abso-freaking-lutely. You know, it's so key for me. And what's become apparent to me throughout my whole life, which is one of the reasons why I'm so delighted to have been asked to be here with you both, is just how much judgment and taboo there is around sex, sexualness, parts of the body, and maybe in a utopian ideal, I would just really love it if there was no taboo and no judgment around sex and sexualness. Full stop.
What would that be like?
Right. And, do I get that it will happen in my lifetime? Probably not. And what contribution can I be to create that where people don't feel, stuck with their body or embarrassed about sexual encounters, whether it be with themselves or with somebody else? I would love, one of my greatest aims at the moment is something I'm working towards, is doing a class where people just be comfortable with their naked body. And it's not about having the right body for you. It's just be naked with the body as it is.
Yeah.
And where can you go with that? So, yeah, empowering people into awesomeness in every area of their life gives me a lot of pleasure, and I get such a buzz from seeing people choosing something different. I really do. It's such a gift.
That is just beautiful, Alun. You are so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for what you're choosing. One of the recent ventures that just really kind of got me fired up to get to have this conversation was a call that you co-facilitated with Liam Phillips. And for anybody who doesn't know Liam, he's a fantastic, lovely gentleman who is also a facilitator of consciousness and awesomeness in the world. And he may get to come play with us someday, hopefully. But you guys did a call on genitals, your best friend or your greatest, did we call it? Did you say
it was best friend or shameful secret?
Yeah. And it was a fantastic call. Now, is that available for folks who might want to play with that call?
They can purchase it. Bear with me a second. So we can keep talking, and I'll see if I can find the link.
And if we're able, what we can also do is put that link in our follow-up email as well when we send out the replay link. And it was a $20 call. It is well worth $20. It's a conversation that is well worth $20. Where the places we went in that call, and the awarenesses that were popping, and just the vulnerability people were willing to have and be on that call, just was inspiring to me. So I'm loving what you're creating with some of your other friends you're playing with, and how much more of an invitation can we be and can we find in the world to have our nakedness with ourselves.
Well, absolutely. I think there is that, there's almost, so the thing about the whole genitals was, yes, I'd love to have people kind of comfortable with their naked body. And for most people, they could probably just about manage to get down to their underwear. But the minute you get to kind of genitalia, you see guys in the gym who desperately kind of get out the towel and, or they'll try and kind of stand there with a towel around them. And it's not like, you should be kind of wobbling around. I don't know, if that's what you want to do, then that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that too. But it's almost like, I must cover this up. I must cover this up. Why? Yeah, and for the whole body and the whole of sexualness, it's like, where have we sexualized to the point that it must be hidden, the genital area, to the point that we're not allowed to? I mean, you look at how much art is there of naked people. They didn't try and cover up the penis or the vagina. They were there, and the breasts were there, and then Victorian age hit, and all of a sudden it's like, it's really taboo. And they went around London chiseling off all the penises of the statues or putting fig leaves over the top.
I do remember reading about that, learning about that. Yeah, it says quite a bit about our collective consciousness.
And, it's like, and if you go to a nudist camp, there is still a huge amount of judgment there. There is huge amounts of judgment about people who wear clothes. Right? Yeah. There's almost a reverse judgment. And there is also no judgment of bodies, typically. You will walk around naked and people don't cover up the various parts of their body. It's just natural. Yeah. So I'm not saying everyone should walk around naked. It's like, what actually would your body like? But when it comes to kind of the judgment that we lock into every area of our body, and particularly the genitals. I mean, the call today is all about, sexually transmitted judgment. How much judgment is there when you're having a sexual interaction with someone around your genitals? If you ever watch any kind of porn at all the men typically have enormous penises. Women and men seem to, kind of, they show them being, fucked like jackrabbits, to be, hammers, to be kind of blunt. And it's like, how much do you have to cut off of your sensualness? Okay, that might be fun for you. And what if there was something, what does your body require? Yeah. Where do people go with this judgment because they don't have the archetypical porn body? Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a perfect segue into our topic today, which is, as Alan said, sexually transmitted judgments. And that is one of the kind of aha moments that started to pop for me when we were on the call that you and Liam did. And I was getting this sense of, so the way, for those of you who may not have played with us before, the way we, on this show, in the context of the work we do here, and that Rhonda and I play with, is when we're talking about sex, we're actually talking about all of what sex is and can be. So we're talking about, yes, copulation or the physical behavior, the physical aspects, and we're also talking about all of those energies that are actually a part of sex that we haven't had conversations about, that don't get talked about, that don't get explored, that don't get played with, and that we really don't get invited to play with in the conventional way that it is done today. So that's part of what we desire to be inviting people to change and choose different with these conversations on sexually speaking. It's also part of what I include in the work that I do and that Rhonda does and that Alan is doing. And so when we got to that space, that there was just this amazing, this was on the call with Liam and Alan, there was this amazing aha, it's sort of a weird aha, that about how much we have transmitted sexually the judgment of sex, the judgment of bodies, this judgment we've held in place. And for a lot of people, I wonder if sex, the physical sex, copulation, is really more of a way of actually locking in the judgment rather than freeing up themselves and their bodies to actually enjoy the energies that show up typically with intercourse.
Wow. Yeah.
And for some people, they don't show up. For a lot of people, I totally am aware that intercourse and copulation, physical sex, is not fun, is not pleasurable, is not something they really want to do or have. And I get that. And I wonder if a part of what this awareness we kind of started to tap into is what has set that up. You know, I don't get that bodies dislike the sexual behavior or energy. What's your awareness around that, Alun?
It's interesting because I read something recently about, they reckon, according to this particular article I read, that people who were choosing this particular lifestyle were talking about around 4% of people in the world truly don't require physical sex. They don't require it. They love the kind of the intimacy and the touching. They'll cuddle, but they don't require the actually putting body parts together. And when you listen to these people talking, I actually get the energy of where they're at. For them, it actually isn't a requirement. And I wonder how much of the sexualness that they're sharing is beyond it is, that kind of beyond what we think we have to get through sex, that kind of communion with somebody else and the play.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think, yes, bodies do like to be touched. Yes, bodies like to be pleasured. And when the kind of the locking in of the judgment comes in, it's like, where do we try to have sex with others in ways that are not fun for us, just to prove to ourselves that we don't really enjoy it in the first place? Because one of the things that, you know, I would say to people who come to me for coaching around this particular area is you've got to be willing to ask for 100% of what you would like 100% of the time, including sex. And people immediately assume that, I mean, you want something rough. Well, right, or something kind of a little bit taboo. How many people are unwilling to ask for what many would describe as straightforward vanilla sex because they think that that's not, you know, they won't want me. So therefore I should want tying up. I should want this and, you know, and whipping and all sorts of other stuff, which I'm like, you know, people want to choose that. That's cool. And what if you don't want to choose that?
Yeah.
And so you've decided that's what sex is and you don't enjoy it. So you go looking for that kind of sex just to try and prove yourself right about how wrong and how right and how wrong and blah, blah, blah. And so you don't have sex. And so you cut off.
Yeah.
Wow. It's just so...
It's really crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I wonder if that's the first, I don't know, not that we have to put them in order, but I was just looking at like the way we set up ourselves to not receive, because we've also had in many of our conversations, we talk about the willingness to receive. And Lily's going to move some energy with us. Something you said kind of like, it's like, are we willing to admit to ourselves or even ask ourselves to begin with, is sex something we enjoy? Is physical sex something we enjoy or desire? And what are the energies that are really those sexually generative energies that we have an abundance of that we may not be acknowledging, and we may not be allowing ourselves to have that because we've put this invention of physical sex as the only
way to achieve it. Exactly.
What's real sex? That's another interesting conversation too. I've read some articles about what people think is really sex and what's not sex, and it's like, wow. And how all of that goes into this judgment that when we engage each other, I kind of have this sense of how we're very aware, and we talk about this on the show quite a bit. We're very aware, whether we're acknowledging our awareness or not. We're very aware. I'm just telling you, folks. You don't have to take my word for it. So it's like, how quickly do we, without cognitive awareness, how quickly are we perceiving what this other person, like their points of views about sex, and then making those adjustments in our own world, in our own bodies. I mean, at the speed of light, at that quantum speed, really, we're making these adjustments to present ourselves in a way that we've already concluded is the only way they're going to receive us, much like what you were just tapping into. And in so doing, yeah, how much of us are we putting on the sideline or trying to? Because can we really shut ourselves off?
Well, and there's the thing, how much of us do we cut off that we think other people won't be attracted to or will be unwilling to receive? Yeah. How much of it, you know, that have been judged about us as being bad or wrong, or we've judged as being bad or wrong for whatever reason, whether it was real or not, because there is no bad and wrong, it's just a different point of view. So we hide those bits of ourselves and desperate hope that they never find out that, oh, actually, I do like being spanked. It's like, I couldn't ever let my partner know, you know, it's like, if that's what you are, it doesn't work for me. Someone tried to do that to me once. It didn't work for me. I was actually quite bored. Hey, you know, maybe he just wasn't spanking me in the way I guess my body wanted to be spanked.
You can kick that off the list of things you've tried.
Right. So, yeah, I tried that. It didn't work, but I was willing to kind of, you know, have a go.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's almost like for me, get in touch with your body and say to your body, okay, body, what would you like?
Mm-hmm.
At what age did we start to judge sex?
Yeah, I was just, for me, it was really young. I mean, I was very aware of the judgment of bodies at a very young age.
Yeah.
That was going on in my universe. And what that invited to come up was the question that came up for this week's sort of that, you know, how there's usually a question for each of the discussions. And the one that seemed to pop was, how many ways have we, or are we defining sex as a disease?
Wow.
And it's like, when you think of disease, you think of something you don't want, you know, you don't want to catch it. So the conversation of sexually transmitted judgment, very much like sexually transmitted diseases, which there are a pretty good number of, I was looking at, are we using our judgments of sex to reinforce keeping ourselves from having ease with our bodies and sort of by default with other people's bodies as well? You know, being present with someone else who's in a body can be really intense.
Do you know, as you ask that, you know, it's like, where are we using that to keep us from, it's like, I just get the awareness of how many people use judgment of sex to keep them from actually enjoying life. Because it's like, oh, they're like rabbits, they're always kind of having sex. It's disgusting, especially at their, you know, I remember my nan when she was in her 60s, my mum's and her sisters were saying, oh, it's disgusting listening to them having sex. And all of this projected judgment of my nan for still having sex.
Wow.
And now, of course, they're her age and they're still having sex. And how much of that judgment have they locked into their own bodies because of projecting at my nan? And it's almost like the man wants it. So all of the women, because most, you know, I've got 7 aunts, and they're all like, oh, well, he wants sex. I don't really want it anymore. So I wonder how many of them have even enjoyed sex. I wonder if them have even explored their sexualness to the point where they get pleasure from it and don't see it as a chore or a wifely duty. And, you know, and how much of that have they locked into their bodies to the point where they're slowly, and they all are, they're slowly destroying their bodies with all sorts of illness. And they make themselves in that space of, I'm too ill to have sex.
Wow.
Nearly all of them.
Wow. So what is it about sex that we've created as so undesirable, so horrible that we're willing to die, that we're willing to kill our bodies rather than have the sex. And when I'm saying have the sex, I mean all of it. Have the copulation as well as have whatever other parts of it you're choosing. You know, the joy of being in the park and hearing the birds and watching the squirrels and the bunnies and the whatever, the joy of being in your garden and digging in the soil, the joy of cooking a meal and putting all, you know, you're touching all the ingredients, and there's everything we do is really actually quite, well, it can be quite tactile and quite
I think it's because we've judged sex as being purely for procreation.
I get a sense that is, yeah.
Sex is not for fun. Sex is purely about keeping the species going. As if you look at animals, they say, oh, well, animals don't have sex for joy. Actually, I'm here to tell you that been proved wrong. Because, or incorrect, because dolphins will have sex for the sheer hell of it, and monkeys will masturbate. You know, so everywhere we brought that as a truth, and so we look at it and go, so if I'm enjoying sex, I must be really bad and perverted, especially if it's with my own, with the same gender as that I have at the moment, because I'm not procreating. Therefore, it's disgusting, bad, and awful. You look at the religions who won't allow. I think that's one of the reasons. You know, so to prevent. So the reason, like the Catholics, you're not allowed to use condoms is because sex is for procreation. It's not for pleasure. Therefore, and you're not allowed to take life because you're not, because that's against God's will and blah, blah, blah. So either Catholics have huge families or they don't have sex.
Which we know is not accurate.
Right. So...
yeah, so that's interesting. When it's set up as the job, the duty, it's to carry on the species.
Well, it is the wifely duty, isn't it? You have to produce me an heir.
Yes, and of course I shared with you before. I've just watched the whole series of The Tudors, which just brought so many of my awarenesses into the foreground and awarenesses that I wasn't even acknowledging around how much we've made it incredibly vital and valuable to produce children, but only certain kinds of children. I mean, that was the interesting thing. It was like it has to be in this particular context of the Tudors, and with royal bloodlines. It has to be a boy, and it has to be through the right channels. And what I found so fascinating was that for all of their trying to make certain laws to get things arranged in the way the humans wanted it, nature prevailed, and Elizabeth actually took the throne after Edward and Mary, in the case of Henry VIII's heirs, and Elizabeth was in the throne for 44 years.
With no children.
Yeah. I mean, known as the Virgin Queen. And isn't that interesting? Known as the Virgin Queen, so much of their existence was about sex. And yet there were so many rules, laws, and things you were not supposed to do. But at the same time, it was being done in the pubs and in the brothels, and in many places that were not even of ill repute. So there's this strange world, this weird kind of conflictual universe that is created. And how many of us duplicate that in our own lives?
Well, do you know what's also interesting around that whole period was from the age of about 14 or 15, young girls got married.
They were married, yeah.
They were married. They were having sex with men who were often as old enough to be their grandparents and great-grandparents.
Yeah.
And that was socially acceptable. Okay? Yeah. And now it isn't. I'm not saying we should go back to those times.
No.
Right? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this is more about choice and awareness.
Exactly.
And interesting, because I'm watching, there's a program on TV at the moment called Versailles, and it's all about Louis the 14th, I think, who was the last... Anyway, one of the French kind of kings, and his brother was he was married, but he had a male lover,
Mm-hmm.
And they're very open about it. And his brother knew he had a male lover, and everyone knew he had a male lover, and it was socially acceptable that he had a male lover.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like all these things that seemed to be acceptable because it was, at the time, suddenly they become not. And there's a whole heap of judgment thrown upon people for that kind of behavior. And the meaning and significance we have around bloodlines. Well, if the king has the queen and they have a baby, right? Awesome. And then he has sex with just a common prostitute because she's not of noble birth. That one can't inherit because it's not legitimate.
Yeah.
It's like, but that's a written law. That's a judgment that has nothing to do with the actual genetics of it. That child, notionally, had a right to, if you're going to look at it that way, to claim the throne. I know we're kind of going completely off topic, but then how much judgment was locked into? Did the women who were the prostitutes, and how much judgment of them was locked into their bodies and around sex? You are there. I mean, Louis the whatever it was, 16th or whatever. He had his wife, and she knew he had 3 or 4 lovers, and there would be a chief lover, right? So he was almost more powerful than the queen.
Yeah,
it's an amazing series. It's very interesting.
Well, and so how aware are we of how much of this has gone on in our story, in the history of us?
And still does.
And still is, yes.
Right.
Wherever it's occurring in the world doesn't really matter relative to how aware we are and what our knowing is. This is I'm referring to our beyond the cognitive here. And all of what I get a sense of is how all of this plays into the ruling judgments of the day.
Yeah.
Whether it's about body image or what you're supposed to do with your lover or what you're not supposed to do with your lover. We see it showing up, when I was in school, it was so shocking to people that kids, when I was in my early adolescence, 13 and 14, it was so shocking to the grown-ups that we were listening to the kind of music we were listening to and actually choosing into some of the things we were choosing. And I wasn't choosing into a whole lot of sexual things or physically sexual things when I was 12 and 13 and 14. At the same time, I was very aware of it. And I knew it was going on. And in that world, there is massive, everything is judgment, everything. And it's, the insanity is it's judgment based on ridiculousness,
Yeah.
And so then as we, like, if that's our sort of experiences that we're brought into the world of sex through, then we go into our adulthood. It's like, it's really not a mystery to me how we have the insanity that we have in relationships as well as in our own, what we allow ourselves or don't allow ourselves to play with regard to sex.
Well, I'm going to come back to what you were saying about awareness as well in all of this, because when you do kind of jump into bed with someone, I don't know about you, but I've just even now just started to acknowledge even more just how aware I am of where the other person's space is. And if only I'd known that 20 years ago when I first started experimenting, with other men, before I met Bill, because there are a couple of times when I completely was going into the wrongness of me about, whatever it was that was going on, thinking it was mine, and totally locking it into my body about what my body looks like, what I actually enjoy doing, whether that actually worked for the person. I remember once asking this guy I was having sex with, "Oh, you look really bored, are you okay?" And I get now that was never mine.
Wow.
It was totally his. He was terrified that I was bored. But of course, because I'm super aware, I kind of, hear that, oh my God, he's bored. And
wow.
Yeah, so I went, after that, I went through kind of about 6 months of going, oh my God, I daren't have sex with anybody because I don't think I'm any good. And I really get that when you are interacting with somebody, it's all about, for me, it's all about listening to what their body is asking for and listening to what my body is asking for and going, hey, does that work for me?
Mm-hmm.
And being willing to say no if something isn't working for you. And not making myself wrong for it. Because again, it's like, oh my God, he's asked me to do this and I don't want to do it, therefore I must be
something wrong.
I must be really shit. I must be really awful. I can't be normal. And
so
how do you feel that?
What are some of the things you began to play with for you with regard to, as you became aware of how aware you are, what are some of your go-to tools, your questions that you use to, if you find yourself going down that path? What do you use?
I love the tools of access consciousness. One of the first things that I will ever ask now is this mine?
Mm-hmm.
Because once I've acknowledged whether something is mine, I don't have to deal with it if it's not. I can just let it go, return it to sender, just let it go, blow it away, breath of kindness, whatever tools you want to use, just go, oh, wow, it's not mine. And then I can ask another question. For me, it's all about questions. It's like, okay, if I'm aware that this person is feeling this, do I just kind of go along and let them stew? Do I kind of ask them a question? Is everything okay? I'm sensing this might not be fun for you. So for me, it is always about being in the question, and that can be very uncomfortable. Oh my God, I daren't ask them if they're whatever, bored or not bored or would like something kind of different.
Mm-hmm.
So it's making the demand of me. And this is a demand of me, and I was talking about it with Glenise yesterday, but I was making a demand of me to always honor me and my body. And if it isn't fun for me, just to say, I'm so sorry, this just isn't working for me.
Wow.
And be willing to piss people off.
That's a big one.
It's huge.
Especially when you're, in terms of, in those moments when you're having physical copulation and something changes and it's no longer fun. So many of, it would be challenging for me to say, whoa, stop, hang on. This, we sound, how crazy do we sound? The energy just changed. This is not fun, and I'm sure for many of us. I
can give you a really good example, actually.
Yeah?
So I actually have quite a small mouth, regardless of the amount of sound that comes out of it. And what I often find with men is that, obviously men, because I never kiss men, really. What I often find with people I kiss, let's put it that way, is that they open their mouths so freaking wide, I feel like I'm going to fall in. And so, not everyone, and, so it's like, and gently you could, I try and just very gently kind of tease them a bit close. And, or it's so, there are three things I don't like with kissing: a really wide mouth, too much tongue, so I feel like I'm being, because again, I was tongue-tied at birth, so
wow.
I actually have a really strong gag reflex.
Mm-hmm.
So I have difficulty brushing my teeth, which is ironic given that I'm a gay man and the things that go in my mouth. It's like, that can be a little challenging. And also just really, really wet. It's like, oh my God, I feel like I'm drowning. So I may sound like I'm a really fussy kisser, but those are just three things for me that just don't work. I remember kissing this guy, I went, sorry, can you after you trying to kind of coax him into kind of closing his mouth a bit more, I said, sorry, can you just close your mouth just a bit? Because it's not comfortable for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked him about 2 or 3 times, and in the end I went, look, this just is not working. I'm so sorry. I can't, this kissing is just not working for me. I'm aware that I have a very small mouth, and I kind of owned it, but without it was like not making myself wrong. It's like, this just isn't working for me. I'm so sorry. Thank you for coming over, but I just don't think this is going anywhere. And yeah, he was a bit pissed, but actually he kind of seemed to take it incredibly well. So maybe I was lucky, I don't know, but it is that willing, for me, we think if we say something like that, someone is immediately going to go on the defensive. Do you know my experience of when I've done that with people is, oh my God, this person's really confident. I'm not going to argue with them.
Yeah.
So when you get into that space, and not everyone is going to be like that, of course, but on the whole, 90% of the people where I've said that's not working for me, and it has been quite a few. I sound so fussy. They've actually been okay with it, and some of them have actually we've tried something else and that worked instead.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones who've left, it's just like, yeah, they don't argue, because
Wow.
like, if you have the confidence to do that to me, wow.
That's a good point.
And what a gift is it to them as well that you're showing them that you're willing to ask for.
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah, that's an inspiration.
Like,
so
how honoring of that? How honoring is that of the other person? In truth, like if something's changing for me, if I just went to a different space, what is the kindness there? Which choice is kindness?
Would you really want sex with someone who's not enjoying what you're doing?
Hell no. I would much rather
know. Aware. You're so aware of what you're doing is not pleasing them. And you're just kind of carrying on, and they don't have the confidence to do it. And you're like, hey, do you know what?
So I just got a sense this is where the sexually transmitted judgment really, I was looking for, as we've been talking, I'm like, I know it's here. And that's the thread. It's like those moments that we have our awareness.
Yeah.
And we choose not to honor that.
Yeah.
We are transmitting that judgment. We are receiving that judgment rather than allowing ourselves to be the change.
Yeah.
To be the energy to change whatever came up.
Yeah.
It's fascinating because this is really subtle. And when the topic landed as sexually transmitted judgment, it was like there was this enormity of it. And at the same time, it's like I could perceive this is not a concept we talk about. It's a little weird. It's a little different from what mainstream points of view would be. And so this is really fascinating because it's like the sex, how often do we find ourselves in those scenarios with things that are going on and the date might be going great until the third kiss. And then something changes. And I wonder what it is about the moment that something changes. Do you have a sense of?
Well, I guess it's you're making, choice creates awareness. And so as you're choosing into that, you get greater awareness of what that's going to create. So it's almost like you could almost take it back to before you even get to the actual physical sex, and you're in a bar and someone starts talking to you, and you may be chatting you up, or you're chatting somebody else up, or you're flirting with each other, and then there might be something they do or something they say, or as you're choosing, actually, do you know what? I think I will choose to kind of play along with this person, and then all of a sudden, kind of everything goes, this is what this is going to create, and you have awareness of what your choice will create, and that's the key. That's about being present. So when you're in that presence of moment and you make a choice, you can read what the energy is doing, and you go, oh, that's not going. I get the awareness. This is not going to go somewhere that would be fun for me or for them, so I can make a different choice. Yeah. And yet how often do we ignore that? And that, again, is the sexually transmitted judgment. We then judge ourselves, we lock it into our body, we force ourselves to kind of go along with it, then we get really angry with ourselves because we didn't listen to our awareness, or we try and force that on someone else. Oh, but they blah, 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 blah. I think, hang on a minute, you had that awareness before you jumped into bed with them that it wouldn't probably work for you. And yet, and actually we're more angry with ourselves.
Yes. So, and Rhonda is beautiful.
I just saw that. Yeah.
I love what she's saying. I'm hearing an echo. So I don't. I wonder if
I'm hearing it both from my end.
Okay. I may be hearing me bouncing through your speakers.
Okay. I can put my doodahs on in a second.
I love that you call them your hoodahs. Mobetta. Do we hear you?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, awesome. So I love this, what she says, I'm choosing to be a sexual transmuter versus a transmitter. That is that's just, I love that. Like,
Yeah.
what if we were willing to be choosing that? What if we were willing to be the energy that changes whatever's going on, still be present with ourselves, still be present with whomever we're with in those moments, and whether we're having coffee or having copulation, be willing
It's a
to be the
copulation.
question. Copulation.
So, and okay, so something else that I became really aware of, talking to Liam Phillips, who I did the genital school with, he once said to me, when you touch somebody's body, do you get a download of everything? And it was almost like someone had just chucked a wet bucket of water, a bucket of cold water, all over me, because you wouldn't get a dry bucket of wet water. Well, you might. And it was just like, wow. And of course, that again, as I'm touching people that I'm copulating with or playing with, it's kind of, I'm downloading it into my body, and I'm aware, as Rhonda was saying about being a sexual transmuter, and there are people who are sexual healers, sexual transmuters, and we don't have to take it into our bodies in order to be that space and energy for people. So, and my way of getting around that is by saying to my body, hey body, can you please let me know, have the awareness of what it is that you're aware of, without taking it on. So I don't take on other people's, just let me know when there's someone around who's choosing that, so that we don't have to choose it. And, and what energy, space, and consciousness can we be to transmute that without taking it into the physical body?
That's so key. Wow.
I am done with locking up other people's shit and crap and taking it out of their body. I will be the gift there, right? I will be the gift. But I'm not taking it on anymore. My body is, I'm going to put my body first.
I love that. I love that. And I was having all of this like recollection of, and this is so prevalent in the music, in the movies, in all of our, everywhere we see this whole, come into me kind of energy, this whole let me receive you, and we think of receiving as taking it on, rather than allowing ourselves to be present with that person, receiving them, not necessarily locking all of their points of view into our bodies. And that's that whole, here again, that sexually transmitted judgment.
Yeah, it's like, and so let's ask the question now. Okay, so how many other people's judgments have we currently locked into our body? Okay, sweet bodies, all the bodies that are listening now and in the future, and any other bodies that can tap into this energy, what would it take for us to let go of all of that now? All of the judgment that we've locked up into our beautiful physical bodies, and by beautiful, this is not about what it looks like, it's the gift of the beauty that the body is. Just the awesomeness of your body. Just say, hey body, how much of this can we let go of now? And can we do that now?
Wow. What an amazing gift to ourselves, to our bodies.
And how grateful are all the bodies just to be asked that question? The body's going, do you know what? Thank you for asking.
This massive exhale is like the sensation I'm having. Like, yeah. And what if we chose to do this every day? Like, this would be like a lovely, I'm going to play with this, because this is like...
Morning gift, yeah. Morning, body. How much do we let go of today that we've locked up that's not ours?
Yeah. And...
Body, show me where else we're locking up. Body, show me where else we've got locked up and where we have locked up.
I love that. This is lovely. So what could we be transmitting?
Whoa, excuse me.
There's actually a bit of releasing there. That is actually, what if we were transmitters of generativeness rather than
kindness, caring, nurturing, allowance, vulnerability, all of all of the elements of intimacy, vulnerability, gratitude, allowance, trust, and honoring. What if we were transmitters of those awesome energies in every molecule of our body? We had those for ourselves and our body, so that we invite people who are willing to choose the space of vulnerability, gratitude, allowance, trust, and honoring.
So if you would like to have more sexual play without the judgment, say, okay, so what invitation can I be for people who are willing to choose the space of intimacy with their body and with the bodies that they play with? What invitation can I be for them to come into my life with total ease?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
Oh. Wow.
Lots of things flying off. Yeah, lots of
Yeah.
sloughing going on there. And just to give some credit, Alan mentioned the 5 elements of intimacy. That is taken from the body of work called Access Consciousness. And for any of you who want to look up Access Consciousness, it's very simply accessconsciousness.com, and you can dive into a whole amazing buffet of delightful tools and adventures in consciousness, and whatever you would like for that to be for you.
Wow.
So I love where we are playing. This energy is just so beautiful, and there's this sense of like, this is what we know is possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and nobody has taken their clothes off, and nobody has flashed any body parts. You know, nobody. This is where
Yet.
Right, as of this moment. Hang around for the after show, folks. But no. This is where I also would love to be inviting people to more of. When you think of sex, when you talk about sex, the vulnerability, the intimacy, that for me is really, this is sex. It doesn't involve what we typically think of, what we typically associate or identify with sex as, because we're so entrained to really go to that physical representation. And yet the gifting and receiving of this, for those of us who are, you know, everyone playing with it, whether you're playing with us live on the show or whether you're listening to this, watching the video on YouTube, you know, there's something so available here. And how much of this do we miss? And whenever you're ready to change that, what if it was just really about, okay, I'm ready to have more of whatever this is. I'm ready to have more of what is yummy and nurturing and really turns my body on from the joy of my body.
Yeah.
And
That's
what would, how much could the world change if we were willing to be with this?
Absolutely. So, you know, what would the world be like if we never chose to judge ourselves ever again? Yeah. So just get a real space for that energy. It's like, if you never judged you ever again, what would change in your life? If you never judged you with sex again, what would change in your life? If you never made yourself wrong for anything ever again, what could you choose?
That's something that kind of came up for me this morning too. And it's interesting. I'm not sure how this like links in, but this is what's coming up. So I was looking at the question, am I really willing to have a life of ease? Because I was just getting a sense of like, in the way I grew up, there was always work to be done. And it usually was about manual labor. And I don't say that to make it wrong. It's like, I'm aware that, you know, this is a family I chose to come into, and this is what we were playing with for the time we were playing with it. But I just got this sense of like, looking at where I'd like to go from here, I'm more aware today of how this ease we're having, this just this being able to be present with each other, and this sense of what it is offering me. I'm really aware that I didn't learn to create my life to include this.
No.
And I'm in the process of asking that to change, asking myself to change it, being the demand of me, as you were referring to earlier, and then asking the universe to show me more of what this energy can be in my life, and having more of this energy can be in my life. So I wonder what it is we can be with all the energies of sex. I wonder,
are people willing to truly choose ease with sex?
That's a big question, yeah. And I get that in this 10 seconds, not a lot of people are.
No.
Because we're so accustomed to the judgment, functioning from judgment with sex rather than ease.
Crystal Crawford had, she was going to do a world tour of a class that she created called The Kindness of Sex.
Mm-hmm.
And what was really interesting was, the energy of the class was just phenomenal. But nobody signed up anywhere apart from Sweden.
Wow.
You know, she was in 5 or 6 different countries, including the UK. Nobody apart from Sweden, where she had, I think, about 10 or 11 people choose it.
Isn't that amazing?
And it's like, what do people love about not having ease with sex that ensures they never choose it? What have we made so valuable and real about no ease with sex that means we can never choose it, that we have to stay in judgment? What's the, it's almost like the brimstone and the fires of dread will happen if you, because, okay, there it is, isn't it? That's the energy, carnal knowledge. Carnal knowledge. Only the devil has that kind of sex. The succubus, the incubus, all of that kind of, the sex is devil. It's seducing, it's wrong, it's lustful, 7 deadly sins.
Yeah.
So,
gosh, I'm amazed. I am amazed.
I'm amazed we've got people in the world.
Truly? And like how much energy has been spent to enforce this entrainment of limitation. Because what I know is when we're not judging ourselves sexually, when we're not allowing judgment to be the energy we're functioning from, what I'm aware of is how powerful we really are as creators. And sex seems to be one of those pivotal ingredients, one of those energies that is the key. And I might sound like I'm making it really significant, and I don't mean to make it significant. However, I am aware of how significant people make it. And relative to that, I'm aware of how much power we give other people over what we allow ourselves to create or not create.
Yeah.
And I'm also aware of how much our willingness to be the sexual creature we be is so intricately woven into really having our capacities, having the power of us, having the potency of us, having this amazing limitlessness of us that is actually quite generative. So, and I don't get that sexually transmitted judgment requires a prophylactic per se. Like, I don't get that it's about resisting them or blocking ourselves from them. I do get that it's about, we be an energy. We have the possibility as these amazing beings that we be to transmute those energies, to actually be the potency. And Rhonda, for many of you who haven't heard us say this, Rhonda's show on A2 Zen on Wednesdays is Potency is My Game. And I love that she reiterates often, potency is the capacity to change anything. And are we willing to embrace that including all the energies of sex?
Mm-hmm.
And
are we willing to be that pioneering and different?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it will take courage. It doesn't mean you have to go and shout it from the rooftops. Hey, everybody, I'm a transmuter. It's like, you can just be the energy. You people who say, well, there is something different about you. What is that?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah. And I see you being that in the world, Alun.
Thank
And
you.
I'm grateful that many of us are choosing this. And what would it take for many more to be choosing this? Even if, it can show up in as simplistic of a way of you just waking up in the morning, looking in the mirror and saying, I actually like you.
Mm.
You don't have to be this profound professor of truths or, spouting consciousness or anything. You could just actually choose to like yourself. And you might be absolutely astounded at what that choice could change.
Yeah, there it is.
Wow. So would we be willing to start with that? What if you just started with liking who you are? And if there's something about you that you don't like, what if you made a different choice? Right?
Mm.
So we're coming up on the last few minutes, my friend. I am so blown away. This has been so lovely, and I'm so grateful that you came to play.
I'm grateful you asked me. I'm really pleased. Thank you so much.
Oh my gosh. I would love for you to tell people how they can play with you more. We'll be sure and include your link to your site in our follow-up email. And sometimes it's just nice for people to hear from the person. I know you're playing with a lot of cool folks and creating some really awesome stuff. Will there be a part 2 or a follow-up call to for the genitals calls?
There will be. Liam and I are going to be creating another call around that. So we just need to kind of get together and talk about the content and how we're going to kind of get it out there. I can give you the link for the where people can buy the first call if they want.
Fabulous, yes.
Do have also, like I said from the beginning, I do empower people to love their awesomeness. So
yes,
I have a free 30-day program that you can sign up to, and it's a bit.ly link, so bit.ly/join the joy.
I love that.
I know, it's just so much fun. So yeah, 30 days, 30 questions, or actually 30 days of questions, because it's not just one a day. Just to kind of get you, Keisha was inviting you to kind of like who you are, and that's part of what these emails are about. It's about you really empowering you to like you and not make yourself wrong. So, I get that, and we'll send you a link to my website, which is alun-jones.com. I do private sessions, I do classes, I'm creating classes with Glenise Hughes. We did one last night about making demands and receiving. And I get as well, for me, sex is about receiving. So if you would like more ease with receiving the sex that you would like, maybe you want to listen, and they're free calls as well. They're making the demand of you and receiving, they're free calls. So we can get you details of that.
And you can tune into Alun's radio show.
Oh, yeah.
He's the playground of possibilities, and he is a co-host with Tamara Yonker. That's on Mondays at 10 a.m. Eastern time in the States. Yeah. What time in the UK? 4?
It's 3 p.m. in the UK and 9 o'clock in Brisbane, Australia.
Love that. So there's lots of ways to play with Alun. He just brings amazing questions and awarenesses into the mix, into the game, into the recipe, and it's a joy to play with you always, my friend. So, wow.
Thank you, Keisha.
Oh gosh, thank you, my friend. I'm just excited for what we can be transmitting and transmuting.
What else is possible? What else is possible if we get out of judgment and into the ease of our bodies and sex and sexualness and just plain awesomeness?
Yeah. And be willing to change it for you.
Yeah.
Would you be willing to change it?
Be the leader of your life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, friends. Thank you for joining us for this conversation of Sexually Speaking. May you be STJ free.
Yeah.
With total ease for you and your body. And wow, what can you be doing this week to celebrate all things sex and the sex of everything? Join us again next week for Unconventional Conversations to Unfuck Your Life. If you're not already on the guest list, please look in the description below this video, if you're watching this on a replay, and click on the link to get yourself on the guest list. You will get an invitation link every week to join us live for the shows. If you have any questions you would like for us to play with, please email that to us as well, and that will be included in the show description under this video also. So, wow. We've covered a lot here today. If it was really weird, if it was totally different, awesome. If it wasn't, if it was something you already know, awesome. And in either case, what would it be like to play with even more of this and more of you showing up in the world? Yeah. I love you, Alun. Mwah. Thank you, friends. Thank you, Rhonda. And join us next week, friends. Wow. How much fun can you have this week with you, your body, and the freedom to enjoy all of the energies of sex. So have fun. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Keisha. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.